Good morning. Ashley, it looks like we're good to go.
We are.
Okay, and my internet is acting up. And so if I disappear, I have asked Jordan to take over, but nothing personal, it's just my internet acting up. Okay, so it is 10:26. So I'm going to call the Public Works Committee to order. And as you can see, we continue to meet virtually. And if we can please put up the information for members of the public to know how they can participate, that would be great. Thank you. So if you are joining us today via Zoom and would like to provide public comment, please use the raise and lowered hand feature and we will call on you to provide comment. If you are joining us by phone, you can do the same by pressing *9 and *6 to mute and unmute yourself. You can always leave a voicemail to City Council by calling 406-552-6012, and you can email us at ci.missoula.mt.us. And these meetings are recorded so you can have access to them at a later time. So with that, if we could get a roll call for attendance, Ashley, that would be great.
Anderson,
Present.
Becerra,
Present.
Contos,
Here.
Harp,
Here.
Hess,
Present.
Jones,
Present.
Merritt,
Present.
Ramos, Cheryl,
Present.
Vasika,
Present.
Von Lossberg, West.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. And we have minutes to approve from our last meeting on the 20th. Are there any changes to those minutes? Okay, seeing none, those will stand approved. Next, we will open it for public comment. Are there any members of the public present who would like to provide any comment? I don't see any. So with that, we will move to our first item on the agenda. And that is a purchase of fencing for the authorized camping site in Garden City Compost. And Dale Bickle is here to present. Dale.
Good morning, council members. Dale Bickle, Chief Administrative Officer. You are seeing our team approach here to implementing the various pieces of our Operation Shelter plans. I'm here today to bring forward the contract with Grizzly Fence for the fencing at around the authorized campsite. The project itself, the contract itself is for $41,410, and it comes in two parts. $29,000 of it approximately is for the temporary fencing that would go around the authorized campsite itself to provide security around it and privacy slats. And I will show you where this show you specifically where this is and the layout in a moment. And then also a portion of this is permanent fencing around along the compost facilities that will be paid from the Public Works budget. And we received two quotes This Grizzly was the low quote here, and also was able to do it in a time frame that it kind of accommodates our schedule. So that's what we are requesting. Give me a moment, I'll share my screen just to go over where this is proposed to happen. So just as a reminder, this is the overhead satellite map of the wastewater facility and the composting site. The site of the authorized campsite is in this piece of property right here that the city currently owns. Is just north of the compost facility right now, or it has been used for public works stockpiling of materials there that are supporting the compost operation. Public works has worked hard to get this the front portion of this site available for use for the authorized campsite, and then as a matter of looking at what the actual site plan is, here's our high-tech site plan for the authorized campsite. This is that space that I showed before. I'll just work around kind of clockwise. This is unusable land. This is actually floodplain where we're not going to put any of the fencing or anything, those types of things. This area is where Public Works will continue to have some materials and be able to use the site. And then this section here that fronts Clark Fork Lane is where the proposed authorized campsite would go. This space accommodates 35 tent spaces. Worked with fire to understand what kind of spacing we would need. So these are 10 by 10 sites with 20-foot spacing in between. You see this is the privacy fencing along with entrances here and an emergency egress here on the south side, providing hand washing station, porta potties, potable water, and dumps, and garbage containers. But it's pretty simple. It's not, there isn't this low barrier camping area is doesn't have a lot of amenities as you can see here. So with that, I'll open for any questions. And Montana James is here from Housing and Community Development to help answer any questions related to the authorized campsite as well.
Thank you, Dale. Are there any questions from council members? Yes, there are. Let's see, Stacy, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Dale, for the presentation. I just had a couple questions about the actual campsite itself. In terms, obviously, this is a temporary solution to get us through the winter, but there are some concerns from the community members that Montana winters are rather rough. And what are we doing to make sure that there's as much warmth and protection available to the folks who will be spending a good portion of the winter there? I think it's maybe more of a question for Montana.
You want to jump in, Montana, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can start, Dale, and then anything that I miss, you can add. Thanks for the question. That is absolutely a consideration. I'll say at the authorized campsite, our city and county staff are working right now on plans and policies and procedures at that authorized campsite to work in all of those pieces of how do folks stay warm, what does the staffing look like, what does the security look like. So we're working on developing that right now, and really want to reemphasize that we also have the emergency winter shelter at the Johnson Street Community Center, the Pavarello Center main Broadway shelter. So the focus of this work is to create a really strong spectrum of options for folks to provide places to stay that fit their needs and their desires. So this is one additional spot, and we will incorporate through the policies and plans at the site considerations, but we have those other options as well.
Thanks so much. Can I have a follow-up, Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Thanks so much. I've been following the temporary outdoor shelter out here in the south side of town, out in the county, right across Buckhouse Bridge on Highway 93. And I think that a couple of things that have been successful at that program have been the fact that there are on-site caseworkers. I realize that the Union Gospel Mission is the one leading up running that facility, but it seems as though it has been successful in connecting people with some of the services that they may need. Several folks out there had housing vouchers, but they just didn't quite know how to utilize the system. Several folks needed IDs to complete a job application process to get become employed. I'm wondering if those sort of what community partners we will be working with to provide some resources for those folks, because I feel like it's a good opportunity to connect people with services while they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say a really important component of all of this Operation Shelter work is the community care team model that was also a portion of the fiscal year 22 budgeting for the work. And so the city and county staff are working with Partnership Health Center, who was identified as the service provider to coordinate that community care team, to scope out the positions and get folks hired for that function. And really the purpose is to have a robust team, including a nurse, housing resource providers, and some mental health providers that can sort of navigate between all of our different shelter sites and meet folks where they are, whether it's at the authorized campsite, temporary safe outdoor space, the Johnson Street shelter. They'll be kind of circulating through those properties to provide those services to folks as they're desired, and to make that kind of regular connection and get folks connected with resources that fit their needs.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that insight. Madam Chair, not to monopolize, but would you allow me one more?
Go ahead.
I know that we authorized a contract to provide security to the Johnson Street Winter Facility. And I do believe in that presentation that there was mentioning of security being available at this site. I do think that that is one of the things that has really been helpful at the temporary outdoor shelter space out here in the south side of town, not actually becoming an issue that some of the neighbors were concerned about, was having that security there. If you could talk a little bit about the security that will be provided at this facility, if appropriate, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, the security is another really important component of this work. And I know Emily Armstrong with our Reaching Home program presented last week on the security contract. And so this site is identified as one of those sites under that master security contract. And again, she has been working really closely with service provider partners, city and county staff to scope out what the security needs will be, and to make sure that we have the 24/7 presence at this authorized campsite, like you said, to make sure that the residents and folks staying here are safe and feel safe and secure. And that is also something that we anticipate will kind of shift. That's part of why we approached it with that master security contract method, to make sure that we could be nimble and shift needs and be responsive as things develop. And, this is new. So in week 1 and week 2, as the site is open, we'll learn a lot about what the needs are and where we need security and what kind of presence we need. So that's contained in that master contract.
Thanks so much for all that. I appreciate it.
Thanks for that question. Thanks, Montana. Julie, go ahead.
Thanks. Dale, I feel like I'm being really spatially challenged. And as a person who looks at maps all day for my job, I feel like I shouldn't be. But can you put that diagram back up? Because I was confused when I saw that.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Is that flipped around?
So the bottom of the screen is south. Clark Fork Lane here. This is the entrance to Garden
Okay.
City Compost here.
Okay. But so that part you have marked as unusable land, that's floodplain?
Yes, that is, well, it is floodplain by the map. We'll say that. You know, we're considering trying to do it's clearly, the elevations there are clearly, we believe show that it's really not floodplain. And so we are considering a loamer to get it out of there.
Okay. I get that. That's what confused me, because that's actually further away from the river than the site where the tents are going to be.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm on the same page now. That left me scratching my head. I would like to make the recommended motion, and I would like to speak to it, but if there are other questions before I do that, I'd be happy to hold my comments.
Why don't you, thank you. And why don't you hold it until we hear from Amber?
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. And I'm just curious, you know, I don't know how recently the HOT team's been out kind of getting numbers together. And I'm curious, Montana, if you would speak to between all the efforts that we have going on in our community for the unhoused population, if, you know, do you think this is going to be a sufficient number of, I mean, how far are we falling short still and having, you know, space for everyone in our different facilities?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that is hard to answer. You know, I think I would say a few things. First of all, I think the experience of homelessness is really fluid and cyclical, and we've experienced this over the last few years with the emergency winter shelter and shifting needs with requiring more distancing for COVID. So I think every year it's a little different. And this is a new effort. So we're working really hard to make sure that we have the right resources and that we're not putting up barriers to access this authorized campsite. And then we know that it will be a lot of work to help navigate folks to this site. We know that there are some particular encampments that we're trying to solve for by offering this resource. And typically, I would say last January, the number of folks at the Reserve Street encampment, for example, in that kind of coldest winter month was 10 to 15 different campsites. So that's a number we have in mind, but that does fluctuate quite a bit when Johnson Street opens and when we add in the emergency winter shelter. So we feel good that this will add the needed capacity right now going into this winter season with the addition of Johnson Street, and we'll be constantly kind of recalibrating and trying to understand and work with the housing outreach team to make sure we have a sense of where there are additional needs and that we're reaching folks and navigating them to these resources. But I think the addition of this authorized campsite, once we get to the expanded temporary safe outdoor space, that will provide us a really different baseline, and we'll have to keep kind of checking on those numbers and reevaluating the capacity that we'll need.
Thanks. Mirta, may I have a follow-up?
Go ahead.
Or I guess it's a different question. Thanks, Montana. I'm also curious, would you speak, and I know today we're talking about a fence, but Montana, would you speak to kind of some of the outreach with the neighboring businesses and in the general area?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I know that some of the neighboring businesses have had conversations with Emily as she's kind of leading through the Reaching Home program. And we're also working with Ginny Miriam to figure out more of a kind of comprehensive outreach approach. But just given the site and the limited number of neighbors versus, you know, something like at Johnson Street, we had a lot of kind of depths of outreach given the broader context. I think in this context, we can do more targeted, more one-on-one conversations, and that's been our approach so far.
Thank
you. Stacy and then Sandra.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I was trying not to monopolize all of the questions when I had my first go around, but this question hasn't been asked by any of my fellow council members, so I wanted to bring it up and for Montana. And realizing again, we're talking about fencing, but I think that there's been a lot of conversation about what we're doing to address the houselessness needs in our community. And also, I know that there has been some changes in how we're approaching things in regards to the court case out of Boise. And we've heard from several community members at various points in the last couple of weeks about their concern about people camping in parks, Silver Park, other parks. And if you feel comfortable speaking to the issue, how we're kind of, my understanding is that due to the court case that people are allowed to camp out in parks if we don't have another alternative area for them. And it does this, A, do I have an understanding of that correctly? And B, does this site sort of provide us that space to help encourage people who might be in other parts of our community to go?
Yeah, I'll address that a little bit. Yeah, there is, camping is illegal in the city limits. But ability to enforce both under the case law and just our how we want to treat all of our residents is difficult. We are actively enforcing our no camping ordinance in various ways. The biggest example is the encampment adjacent to the POV in recent days that really became problematic from a public safety and health issue. But having this area where there is a minimal level of services does provide people an area to go when they can camp, and we will continue our enforcement actions relative to illegal camping inside the city limits.
Great, thank you. Ms. Basika.
Thanks. I believe Julie wanted to say comments first, so I will let her say her comments before I say mine, if that's all right with you.
Go right ahead, Sandra.
Oh,
you
okay.
Stand up.
Okay. So I asked this question to oh gosh, I can't remember who. Reaching Home. They answered because I was concerned about why the approval of this encampment did not come through council. And apparently, because it's city-owned property, it does not need city council approval to be used for this function. So because of that, I am going to be in support of this motion today for the fences. I do know that a lot of the business owners on Clark Fork Lane are really frustrated with this. But I do believe that having a fence will mitigate a lot of the problems. I just ask that we keep an open door policy to the business owners and make sure that we keep in communication with them. Thanks.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And yes, I think it's part of how both this and all of our facilities work with the neighbors to have that communication. I hope that the neighboring businesses are able to have a quick way to communicate with city staff if they see any problems. I think there's going to be some protocols put in place so that people know who to call if they see any potential issues. So I feel comfortable that we're going to have that in place as well. But thanks for bringing that up, Sandra. Julie, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'm fully in support of this. As has been alluded to, we have to have a place for people to go if we're going to prevent them from camping in the illegal, unsanctioned Reserve Street campsite. We don't have a lot of options. The city did look at a number of other places, and of course, nobody wants this in their backyard. I will say that in the conversations that I've had with the business owners, what I feel like they're not understanding is that this is going to be an improvement over the unsanctioned illegal camping that's happening, because there will be some control, there will be security, there will be, ability for people to access services, as we've discussed. And that's important. I mean, this is not just the city sanctioning all of the behavior that was happening under the Reserve Street Bridge. I mean, the fires and the medical emergencies and the criminal activity, that's not going to be the same thing that's going to happen in this location. So I hope that those business owners who are concerned about this will recognize that. I guess I'm eternally hopeful in that respect. But it is, it's a step we need to take at this point. Our hope is that as our other facilities with the Trinity and other resources that are going to be coming online, is that this does not have to be a permanent situation, and we'll have much better resources for people in the not too distant future. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, I just want to add that I think the city and any other collaborating agencies are responding in a responsible and compassionate way to a real issue. So I am fully supportive of putting forward anything that we need to make this happen for our unhoused community. Any other comments or questions from council members? We have a motion on the floor. Okay, anyone from the public who would like to provide public comment on this agenda item, please let us know. Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for the presentation and answering all our questions. I'm sure there'll be more at some point in the future, but appreciate it. And this will be on our consent agenda. So with that, we will move to our next item on the agenda. And that is a professional services agreement with Imeg for the East Front street water main replacement, and Andy is here to present.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Andy Schultz, city engineer for utilities, and I'm here to ask for the authorization for the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Imeg to design and oversee the construction of a water main replacement along East Front Street from Madison Street to Jackson. I can share my screen. I'm going to show you what extent we're looking at. Can you guys see that? Okay. So we've identified this area as priority 1 and priority 2 water mains to be replaced. So back in 2013, Mountain Water bored a new water line under Madison Street, just to the east side of Madison. So we'll be connecting to that, and we're going to be replacing 6-inch water main through Front Street, and it's all different types of water main. It's cowl main, cast iron steel, invasion steel pipe, and it's all really old. It's from 1920, 1931, and 1948. And then we'll also replace a little over 200 feet of 2-inch galvanized steel main from 1931 up Monroe Street, and then tie in on Jackson Street to pipe in West Broadway. So this has all been identified as priority mains that are likely leaking and need to come out. They've served their useful life. So the design for this project comes in at $35,005. Then the construction oversight with Imeg is $49,836 or $35, excuse me. So the total project cost will be $84,840 for the design and construction oversight. And happy to take any questions.
And Andy, this is coming out of the enterprise fund.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
Dennis would have me for that. Yes, this will be part of the water enterprise fund.
Great. Are there any questions from council members? Amber.
I don't have any questions, but I'd be happy to make the recommended motion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, we will have a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Anderson, Anderson,
Ashley, I'm not seeing anyone. Their cameras, oh, no, here we go.
Maybe Andy could take down the map that he's shown us.
Becerra,
Yes,
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
great, thank you. And that will be on our consent agenda. And Andy, you got the next item on the agenda, another professional services agreement with Imeg and for the URD, URD 3.
I think it's URD 2.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry if there was a typo in the agenda. So I'm back. So we're asking for the authorization for the mayor to sign another professional services agreement with Imeg. And this will be for design for construction of water mains and sidewalks in an area east of Russell Street, if you can see my exhibits, along Idaho, Montana, Inez, and California Street. So we've worked with MRA and identified this as an area that's lacking water main and sidewalk infrastructure, which is a hindrance to future development. So Public Works has entered into an MOU with MRA, where MRA will fund the project through URD2. And the MRA board has already voted to approve this funding for the work. So we selected Imeg from pre-qualified list of engineering firms for this water and sidewalk work. The construction of this, it's pretty large, so it's going to occur over, we anticipate 3 years, but what we're asking for in this agreement is to fully design the facilities. So we're looking at the area holistically, and the water mains all tie in together appropriately, and sidewalks are graded correctly. And then we'd phase the construction over the course of 3 years. So in the exhibit, you can see the 2 areas circled in yellow. Red is the sidewalk, blue is the water main. The areas circled in yellow are what we're targeting for phase 1 for construction. And so that'll be a water main between Idaho Street and California Street. And then over towards Prince Street, where we'll tie into water mains that were stubbed out as part of the Russell Street MDT work. So then these public infrastructure improvements will also coincide with a private housing redevelopment project on Idaho Street as well. So Schedule A in the scope is for the water main work, design work, that's $78,455. And then Schedule B is for the curb and sidewalk at $94,330. So the contract amount is $172,785. And that'll be funded through MRA through URD too. So happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Andy. Let's see. I believe Gwen was first. Go ahead, Gwen.
So I actually would like to make the motion and speak to it. And if you want me to hold off on that, I'll wait. But I know the history of this item, so.
Okay, let's hold that until we have some other potential questions answered.
Okay.
Julie, go ahead.
Andy, I wonder if you could just, and I know that it looks like from the information that's attached that the Public Works wasn't actually the agency that did the choosing on this, but maybe you could speak a little bit to the procurement process. Were there multiple bids considered on this project?
No, so MRA will be the funding agency, and we've already done a pre-qualified list. So we'll be the project lead on it. So we've done our pre-qualified engineering list for water and sidewalk work. And so that's how we chose Imeg out of that pre-qualified list. So we went through an RFQ process earlier this year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so was there what I'm trying to get at is, was there a particular aspect of Imeg that put them on top? I understand that you already had a list of qualified vendors.
Sure. Yeah. Imeg has already has some survey data and has done some of the sidewalk work in this area. So it kind of made sense to pick them with kind of their background in this area.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Julie. Heather, go ahead.
Thanks. Andy, I guess one of the questions I have is with the two yellow ovals representing the first phase of this project. Can you kind of explain to us why it's set up or it's recommended as it is, rather than trying to do one area first and then follow with the other area further south in a second phase?
Yeah, I think we're trying to look at overall budget that we can spend. So we've got or MRA has their allotted amount of money, and so we're trying to meet. At the top of my head, I can't remember what they're trying to spend in each year. So where we're doing sidewalks and water mains adjacent to each other, we'll do those projects at the same time. But then that south circle, that will be sidewalks alone. So I think it functions fine to be kind of its standalone projects as part of the same work, if that makes sense.
So it sounds like, Andy, while it's not ideal, it's also based upon our funding that's available.
Right. Yeah. The water main work is pretty expensive compared to the sidewalk work. And so I think we almost had spent our whole budget on that Idaho street, and we could just squeeze in a little bit more, or we think we can squeeze in a little bit more sidewalk work in that River Street, kind of added up to the right quantity of work to get us to the budget number.
Great. Thanks for that explanation.
Yep.
I think sometimes we have to move in an opportunistic way rather than the most logical way. So I think that's what we're doing here. Okay, Ms. Jones, you were gonna put the motion on the floor and provide comment on it. Oh, we have one more question from, no? Okay.
It's a comment. I'll wait.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Gwen.
Okay, thanks. I'm happy to make this motion, and I'm glad to see this come through. I just wanted to say that several years ago, when Emily Gibson was on council as a Ward 3 councilor, she really went to bat for this neighborhood, advocating to get not only infrastructure, but sidewalks in. And there was a lot of discussion about sidewalks and how many kids live in this neighborhood, and the fact that just getting to the bus stops even was really challenging. So I just want to give a shout out to Emily for her good work in the past to lay the foundation so that this is coming through now. And thanks, Andy, for all the work you guys are doing on this. And I'm really glad this neighborhood needs some attention, and this is exactly what it needs. So happy to see it go through.
Thanks for that. Sandra.
Thanks. So with the MRA funding this, that means that they're using TIF dollars for this. And everyone knows my frustrations with TIF is because I feel like it takes away from stuff like sidewalks and streets. But since they're using the dollars for sidewalks and infrastructure like this to benefit the community, and I've walked that neighborhood plenty of times, and it definitely does need sidewalks. I'm in full support of this. And I hope that you all look at Davis Street next. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Yes, I too was going to point out that this is another example of that partnership with MRA and how we can use TIF dollars to improve one neighborhood at a time, one sidewalk at a time, but overall trying to complete that network system. So happy to support it as well. With that, we have a motion on the floor, no public to provide public comment. So we'll take a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Basika,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Great, thank you. That too will be on our consent agenda. Thank you, Andy. And next we have two temporary speed limit requests. And the first one is establishing a temporary speed limit on George Elmer Drive. This was the sponsor of this referral was Mr. Hess. So I will let him give us a background and then ask Kevin to walk us through the implementation aspect of it, if that works for you both.
Yeah, thank you. And apologies, I'm having some tech issues. So can you all hear me okay? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is in regard to the George Elmer Drive, which is off of Mullen Road in the area of 44 Ranch and Flynn Ranch. This image shows the Mullen Build Grant project that's in design and scheduled to be implemented here shortly. George Elmer Drive, as it exists now, has this area that goes through a vacant field where we've recently approved a couple of subdivisions. This is looking south from Flynn Ranch and 44 Ranch. Looking to the north, there's it has much more of a neighborhood feel. And with construction on the McNett Flats subdivision, there's been some fairly significant neighborhood frustration around noise and dust and general safety concerns with vehicles leaving the construction site at a high rate of speed. The Build Grant project, and I think Kevin can speak more to this, but the Build Grant project is scheduled to, or the plan is to reduce the speed limit on George Elmer Drive from 45 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. And that would be much more in the character of the neighborhood, and it would improve the sense of safety along this corridor. So the proposal today is basically to implement a temporary speed limit, which council has the authority to do, to give these neighbors some more immediate relief, and then to ask staff to do a speed study to confirm that speed makes sense as we move into the Build Grant project. So that's the background. from my end, and I'd happy to take any questions or turn it over to Kevin for any additional questions or presentation. I want to thank Kevin for helping put this together in short order and for being supportive of bringing this forward.
Thanks, Jordan. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. And if you can maybe walk us through the process a little bit, how this would happen and how soon it can happen, that would be great. And then we can take some questions.
Okay, so we recently, well, you folks recently reduced a speed limit for a school DeSmet School adjacent to Expressway. And through that, we said we would conduct a formal speed study after the temporary speed limit was put in place. We will do the same thing with this request and the next request if approved. For this one in particular, George Elmer Drive, again, it's a infrastructure is being looked at and going to be completed with the Bill Grant project here that will get started this coming spring. And so we want to have a speed study completed for all of the Bill Grant roads before really they're constructed. Well, with added improvements, if they're already constructed, with added improvements that the Bill Grant is going to make to them. So anyway, we hope to do this particular speed study in the next 6 months or so and have that permanent speed limit in place then. When the construction is either before the construction starts or before the projects are completed. So time frame on that. And then, yeah, the Bill Grant design anticipated a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit for the roads within the Bill Grant. So that's what we'll look to suggest with the speed study, but we'll collect the data, the appropriate data, and we'll bring it back again fairly soon. Additionally, I wanted to mention that that if this is approved, which I think it will be, and I think it's a good thing, it's still going to be difficult to control speeds because you're really not changing the environment on George Elmer Drive until other things occur, like construction of the Bill Grant, as I mentioned. The city also has a project in design right now. It's almost completed with design for the roundabout at George Elmer and Cattle Drive. So that'll change the environment a little bit too, and will definitely aid in a lower speed limit rather than just putting up new signs. So I'm a little bit concerned about vehicles not adhering to a 30-mile-an-hour, but that's what we have enforcement for too. So with the new signs and enforcement, I hope we can really benefit the existing the folks that live out there and increase safety for those people. So yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions also.
Thanks, Kevin. I was going to say the same thing, that a combination of both a posted speed limit and enforcement can definitely be an effective way to at least educate people on what the posted speed limit is. So any questions from any council members? Okay, anyone who wants to make the motion? Amber.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is a great idea. Thank you, Jordan and Kevin. I'm excited to be able to give them a little bit of relief out there as we continue the building. So I'm happy to make the recommended motion.
Thanks, Amber. We have a motion on the floor, no public for public comment. Any final comments from council members? Okay, I will just add that this area is in my ward, and I know there are many concerned residents, especially as more and more construction takes place. I think it's really important for the safety of everyone, including the young residents of these neighborhoods, to have speed limits to be more reflective of the environment where they live. So happy to support it. So with that, Ashley, could we take a roll call vote, please?
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. That too will be on our consent agenda. And our last item on the agenda is another temporary speed limit on Upper Miller Creek Drive. And the sponsor for that referral was Miss Anderson. So I'll let you give us some background on it. And then Kevin, if you can help us with the implementation part of it, that'd be great.
Great, thanks so much, Madam Chair. And I'm happy to bring forward this referral and want to again thank Kevin Slovart for all of his help putting this together. As we talked about a little bit on Monday, Ward 5 has this kind of hodgepodge between the city and the county and areas. And I've heard from numerous constituents and residents that they are concerned about the speeds on Upper Miller Creek Road, and so worked with Kevin to and he reached out to the county and started conversations with them of kind of creating some lower speeds, hoping to kind of slow everyone down before they start heading down the hill when gravity helps pick the speeds up. So and we will be talking more about obviously expanding out into this area later today in land use and planning. So the hope is that not only is this going to be hopefully a speed study that is done, but an overall possible traffic study that we'll talk about a little bit more in land use and planning, just to make sure that we're having appropriate infrastructure for the, to meet the service the people who live there. So thank you so much. And I'll let Kevin Silvart take it over from here.
Okay, thank you. So the existing speed limit on Upper Miller Creek Road, and I'm sorry if I call it Upper Miller Creek Road by habit, it might just be Miller Creek Road, but I think we're talking about the same thing, hopefully. Anyway, wanted to clarify that, but the speed limit on Upper Miller Creek Road from the roundabout south going up the hill is 35 miles an hour. And as far as speed limits are concerned, we want to have those be uniform and consistent. We really don't want a 35 and then a 45 and then a 35, up and down, back and forth. And the consistency really helps regulate speed, I think. So to set a temporary speed limit of 35 is I think the right speed limit to set at this point. I will also mention, as Stacy did, the county reached out to me and asked about this and asked if the city could potentially work with them and potentially include area of Upper Miller Creek Road, basically then down the hill to Trails End Road. That portion of the road is in the county jurisdiction, to potentially lower that speed limit also. And they might do that just as a matter of course. They might have an ability to do that without a speed study. But if by chance they don't do that, we may include that other section of 45 in the study that we conduct for this one anyway. And then I also wanted to take a brief minute to ask Ryan Guelph to turn on his camera so you can all get a good look at Ryan. He is a new hire for surface engineering. And he's our transportation engineer. And I think Ryan will, for the most part, be doing the work of providing the information and compiling data and whatnot, putting together the speed studies that we're talking about here for George Elmer Drive and Upper Miller Creek Road. So I wanted to introduce Ryan and have you all know who Ryan is and expect to see a report and a presentation from Ryan in the future. And definitely I'll be involved in being working alongside with Ryan also in these endeavors. But wanted to thank Ryan for coming to the city. He started on September 13th. And so he's been here for a month and a half now, and he's gonna help us do good things here at the city. So wanted to welcome Ryan too, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to see you again, Ryan, and welcome. Any questions from council members? Julie.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm understanding where the stretch of road that we're talking about here. Do you have a map, Kevin?
Yeah, I do have one handy. Let me share my screen.
The description that's given in the referral just
Yeah.
just south of Linda Vista up to the city limits, but the city limits are kind of patchwork there.
So it is. So here's Linda Vista, and the speed limit turns to 45.
Okay.
Posted speed limit sign right here. If you can see my cursor, and then we would basically include or reduce the speed limit to 35 all the way through. This is called Maggie May Drive. And I think council just heard about this as far as annexing Linda Vista Supplement 18 last, I think on Monday or relatively soon in the recent past, I would say. So the city limits are essentially ending here once this annexation occurs. So we're planning on putting this new 35-mile-an-hour zone down to the intersection, just past the intersection of that Maggie May Drive.
Okay, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. I'd be happy to make the recommended motion.
Great. Thank you, Julie. Heather, go ahead.
Kevin, thanks for putting up that map, and thanks to Julie for making that suggestion. I think based upon our Monday night's decision about annexing in those 3 areas in the Miller Creek area, it makes a lot of sense to make sure that we have that consistency in speed limits there. I know that many higher density areas around town, for whatever reason, end up with those higher speed limits, and accessing the main roads, higher concentrations of people somehow just does not make sense to me. So I'm really thrilled that Kevin and Stacy, that you proposed this, and it's going to make a lot of sense for that neighborhood. I'm in support.
Thank you. Stacy.
And just one question for Kevin, and this kind of got addressed in the previous with George Elmer. What sort of conversations do you have with Missoula Police Department's traffic division when we do these temporary reductions of speed to let them know? Do they then sort of kind of increase their services there in terms of making sure compliance for it, and so that they know that this is coming down the pike?
Yeah, we do talk with PD and ask them to start to patrol maybe a little bit more frequently in these areas of temporary speed limits. And then what we also typically do is the first week or even two of a new speed limit, we basically will give out warnings to folks instead of a ticket first and foremost. So at least they have a heads up that, okay, not only have you seen a new sign, but we're going to give you a warning this time around, and but maybe next time, you know, if it's in the third or fourth week of the permanent or the new speed limit, posted speed limit sign that's up, that then those folks will that are choosing to break the law could and likely will get a speeding ticket for those zones. So we will work with PD, and PD will likely give folks a bit of a grace period.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. We will take any public comment if there is any. No public comment. So we'll just take a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. That too passes and it will be on our consent agenda. Thank you, Kevin, for all your help. Thank you for to the sponsors for bringing this forward. And we don't have any other items on our agenda. So if there are no further comments, we would be adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.